All right, it is time for that weekly dose of common sense, and we're going to bring it to you from commonsenseohioshow.com. All of us back at the table, August 16, 2024. I think it's been, 3 or 4 weeks since we've all sat here? Maybe not, maybe 2.
Well, it's probably been that.
Has it been that long?
I bet it maybe.
Yeah, it's been a minute, but we're all back. Norm Murdoch, Brett Johnson, Steve Palmer, yours truly here, bringing you Common Sense Ohio week in and week out, or at least we try to. I think very few weeks. We just hit what episode, Brett?
Today is 100.
100 episodes of Common Sense.
Now, this may not be a lot. A listener's going to go 100, big deal.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like a lot to the listeners.
But it is.
Try to do that.
Try to do 100 things every week. I should say one thing every week for 100 times. For 100 weeks. Yeah. That's basically what we've done.
That's what we've done.
Very hard to do in this world. No matter what you're trying to do.
Particularly, look, anybody who's tried a podcast, anybody who is, because look, and we've had plenty of them down here that have come down and wanted to do their own podcast. It is not as easy as people think. And what I always tell people is, look, find a niche that you can, that content comes easy, because it's not easy. Norm, I know what you go through every week to come up with news stories and stuff that we can talk about, and it's not easy to do. So, hats off to us. And if you folks are happy with what we've done, go to commonsenseohioshow.com, send us a note. You want to be a sponsor, you want to help us out. I think we got some other sponsorship or maybe some Patreon type stuff coming, but we do come at this every week, and it's not easy. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of effort, and we want to keep doing it.
And as you said, some mornings you just don't feel like doing it.
Sometimes you just don't feel like doing it.
Because the week's been just a bear, and you don't want to do it.
But isn't it interesting, too, that common sense has become a niche?
Isn't it? Right.
You keep hearing it more and more, don't you?
So if you go to like our Facebook page, you'll see other organizations being suggested, and there's Common Sense Minnesota, Common Sense New York, Common Sense. It's like
it's become it's catchy.
Yeah, it's like other people in other places have discovered maybe that there's a general lack of common sense.
Well, it's sort of like fish. They don't realize they're swimming in water.
Yeah.
Like when we just lived with common sense for so long that when they took it away, it was like, wait a minute, what's happening?
It's a rare thing.
I can't breathe anymore because the water's gone and I don't know what to do. So we've created commonsenseohioshow.com. So at any rate, we appreciate your listenership. We appreciate you following us on Facebook and social media. And we would most appreciate it if you would just go like and share. Tell your neighbor about the common sense. Guess what? It's catchy. It's catchy.
It is.
If you start making sense, other people want to make sense. And if other people want to make sense, then maybe some other people would want to make sense. And pretty soon we can have our water back.
Yeah. Well, and if nothing else, we've talked about this too. Hopefully the listeners have learned. Maybe I'm learning as we go along with this as well too, is just to sit and listen, shut up and listen.
Yeah.
Listen to the other point of view, take it in. You can disagree, but walk away from that conversation, friends.
Right.
Just do. It isn't worth it.
It is. I've seen some, I look on the TikTok or on the YouTube. I don't have TikTok, so but on YouTube or Facebook, I think they're probably shared across those platforms. But you see these people, somebody getting interviewed, and they're like, what? I saw one particularly where it was a woman, and she was there at a Trump rally, and the guy was like, "You want me to introduce you to some of these people just to see if you can maybe find some common ground?" She's like, "No, no." Well, why? I mean, no. I already know those people. Well, what do you know? Well, they're all racist, or they're all this, or they're all that. It just is. It's like lunacy.
Right.
Lunacy.
And if you go 1 millimeter below the surface and say, "Well, tell me why you think they're racist," she has absolutely
because they voted for Trump.
She has no example.
That is the answer.
No
because
examples.
they voted for Trump.
Yeah,
right.
they can't give you an answer.
Yeah.
Just like.
Yeah.
And we see that yesterday, just because I'm not going to platform people that it's okay to platform people that challenge us and give us reasons why they disagree. That stays up on our Facebook page. But when somebody just says, "You're a bunch of effing right-wing wingnuts,"
nut bangs or something,
and that's all they have to say, and then
it shuts the conversation down.
Yeah. Well, then you email back, "Well, what substantively do you disagree with?" They will not engage in that conversation.
Of course not.
Yeah.
Because look, if you, and this is the problem, I've talked about this before, when you subscribe to a certain ideology, it just basically is a set of principles that's it for you. And you never really have to think about them. That's what I believe, because that's part of my, I'm this, so I believe in all these things, even if somebody proves any one of these things may not make sense or may not be right.
Yeah.
I believe in all these things. And I think any extreme, you're going to run into that.
It's not up for discussion.
Not up for discussion.
And that's where I think, to Brett's point, so I grew up in a fabulously, thoroughly political family. My father was an office holder his entire career. So the old saying, you don't discuss politics at the dinner table. Well, that's all the hell we talked about.
You don't not discuss politics at the dinner table.
Right.
And so a family of 8, we learned to tolerate each other, right? And there was a diversity of opinions. We didn't all believe the same things Dad did. And you left as friends.
Yeah.
If not family, at least friends.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, it just is, things have just become so polarized that I don't see a middle ground. It's like, it's hard to even see that there could be a middle ground. I mean, it's difficult, but that's the purpose of what we're trying to do here.
That's why
we're called right-wing nuts. I don't consider myself a right-wing nut. I might be a nut.
Me neither.
Don't call me.
When it all moved so far left, and you have people like in the Democratic Party, you have people like Joe Manchin, who's a pretty normal person, right?
Right. We might disagree on some economic policy, but that'd be it.
Yeah, and they find themselves adrift, or another one was Joe Lieberman, right?
Lieberman.
Yeah.
Nikki Haley.
Yeah, right.
Recently.
Ronald Reagan was a Democrat, and then they just went too far to the left, and you turn around and go, well, where did the party go?
Yeah.
Tulsi Gabbard. Or
did I mean Tulsi Gabbard when I said Nikki?
Is that who you meant?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Great example. Tulsi's a great.
Yeah. My bad.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Sometimes you stay the same, right? You're just like a normal American.
Bill Maher is now, he's starting to wake up to this, and he would say, look, I'm a Democrat. I'm a lifelong Democrat. My party moved, not I.
Yeah.
And he's calling some of this stuff out, where finally he's admitting things like, well, look, all these Trump voters, it's not because they're crazy. It's because they don't like things like men competing against their daughters in high school sports.
Right.
And you, my party, have subscribed to this, and you're not letting go.
Yeah. Joe Rogan's another commentator that's definitely
and then
changed.
And to the news, you've got what's his name, Tesla.
Oh, Elon Musk.
Elon Musk just recently.
He backed Biden in the last election. In 2020, he was a Biden donor.
And he was an Obama guy. I mean, and now he's like, this is the most dangerous thing I've ever seen. He goes, I haven't moved. All you people have moved.
Yeah.
I'm just still calling the shots and common sense that I see, And,
You're literally shutting down speech, and you're telling me, the owner of X, that somehow I'm a danger to free speech, because I'm going to let anybody on the platform say whatever they want, right? And then anybody who wants to oppose what they say can say whatever they want.
They can say whatever they want. Right.
So it's a conversation, or it's a shouting match, but it's free speech, And so he reactivated Trump's account.
Right.
And,
interviewed him for 2 hours. Was it like a 2.5 hour interview early on Monday or Tuesday, whenever that was?
Even reactivated Alex Jones's account. And Alex Jones was legally proven to
he was persona non grata, man. He was
right.
Yeah. I still like Alex.
He's broke. I mean, he's totally $1.5 billion judgment on him.
Such nonsense. And you know what else is what's interesting about Alex Jones is that every now and not even every now and then, a lot of the stuff he says has been borne out, has been proven true.
Exactly.
But he just goes a little too far.
He goes too far. Right.
He just goes a little too far.
Right. Which is typical of the prognosticators, because they have to break through the noise.
Well, right. It's
they
like
do.
the National Enquirer. Right?
Oh yeah, they have to break through and
there's a little bit of truth at the bottom.
Right here, and then I got to go over here so people will hear me and bring it back in.
Well,
and it burned him.
The thing about the killings in that Connecticut preschool.
Yeah, that was all fake, and it's like that kind of sensationalism got him in trouble. And he didn't need to go there either. I don't understand. I mean, or maybe at the time he did. Maybe he didn't have such a big platform. I don't know.
Well, and then the pedophile pizza shop in New York City, like he accused these guys that owned this little Italian pizza shop that, I don't know, some of the DNC people would go get their pizza there. And so he came up with this idea that what they were really doing was setting them up with children.
Right.
And
Right.
like,
It just
Alex,
is like, why go there? Why do it?
Where are the dots to even connect them?
But then he had some other stuff that he was dead on about.
Oh, yeah.
But
right.
but it gets no attention because he goes too far.
Yeah.
Yep.
His big claim to fame, where he was correct about a lot of things, was the that David Koresh group in Waco. That's how Alex really got his bones. He did documentaries because he's from Texas, and he went out there, and of course the FBI bulldozed all the evidence away.
Yeah.
Right. And so it was a natural conspiracy theory situation to come up with, well, what are they hiding? Why would they bulldoze a site where no forensics can be done to find out, was that CS gas out of that tank really CS gas, or was it fuel?
What was really going on?
Exactly.
Right. And why was the FBI
so Alex was on top of some pretty good stories there for a while.
Just a little bit out of control.
And he went wild.
And speaking of, well, and that I guess one more point about what we're doing here with the celebrating 100 is that we are trying not to go too far. And if we do go too far, I would presume that either one of you two will whack me back, or maybe one of our commentators will whack us back.
I think we pulled back on each other.
And we do on this show.
We get emotionally charged.
Sure, it's easy to do.
It is easy to do.
And we do correct.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't like being corrected, but we do admit our mistakes.
Yeah, I try to.
And put them on the show.
I try to. And look, I always make an effort, I think sometimes to your chagrin, Norm, to take the other side of the argument just to see where it rides us.
Yeah.
Because that is where you find the truth.
Yeah. It is good to be a devil's advocate. Just because then you're forced to flesh out,
what's the rule? What are the exceptions? How does it fit in with common sense?
And why do you think this? So I'm going to challenge you. And that helps you, actually, the Socratic method. That helps you explain your position. Is when otherwise we're just nodding dogs. Oh, I agree with you, Norm. Well, that's not interesting.
Yeah, I did we're going way far afield here, but what the heck? I did a pre-law program at Oxford, I think, between my junior and senior year of college.
Wow.
So I went over to Oxford, England, and spent 4 or 5 weeks in a summer program, pre-law, and I got some course credit for it. And they had this wonderful British professor. They brought in guest speakers, but the main guy was this British professor who came in, and he sort of monitored what we would call here a seminar, open discussion about, I think, some pretty controversial legal topics, sort of social legal topics, maybe like medical ethics or even race, whatever it would be.
Yeah.
And, he sort of took us all on this ride where we would debate each other and argue each other and go through. And at the very last luncheon that he took us up to his house, served us biscuit and tea and whatever, and and in his British way, which I won't even try to replicate, he goes, I've tried to get you all to think. I've tried to get you all to at least consider everybody's position in what you Americans would call the Socratic method. And if you go to law school, you'll learn all about it. And he goes, I've wanted to teach you something that it's almost impossible. Some of you think that you could be consistent about everything, but it's almost impossible. And the only way to flesh all that out is to have discourse, to have a dialogue, and to really push the bounds. So don't feel bad if you feel like you were impeached or whatever word he used in one topic or another, because that was the point of it. And, it really was to create critical thinking. I think academics has completely abandoned that at this point.
Totally.
There is no more critical thought. Yeah. If you come up with a contrary view, you're just like the Trump lady or the lady who hates the Trumpers. You're a racist, and I don't like these people. You're deplorable.
Yeah.
And, shame on society for that, and shame on the academic institutions for that.
Well, that girl in Cincinnati, the UC college student that we talked about on the show, who tried to write a paper about the biological assignment of people that are transitioning. Mm-hmm. And the college professor she had would not let her use the word biological, right? It's just supposed to be your assertion of gender, and you don't say this person is biologically male or biologically female. You have to say that they identify, if you want to talk about that there might be a difference of opinion. Right. You can discuss the difference being what the identification is, but you can't reduce the discussion to biological difference.
You can't use a term that they deem to be politically incorrect, which is really French for saying we're just going to tamp out that viewpoint altogether and not let anybody even indulge it.
Because they know they will lose the argument.
They can't win the argument.
They allow it to be in there.
Or they're afraid they're going to lose the argument. They're afraid of the argument. So it's sort of like what you said with the listeners, like, hey, look, where am I wrong?
Right.
Where am I wrong?
Where am I?
And I'm cool with this. I'm cool being wrong.
Yeah.
And
but don't just yell a name at me, right?
You right-wing nut.
Because I'm going to delete it. I'm going to delete it. If you just say if you just say
I don't think you should. Actually.
You're a show of three gigantic assholes. I'm just going to delete that unless you tell us.
Do people say that? I don't know if you read those. Yeah, I think it's awesome if you
and I followed. I didn't follow him. I clicked through to kind of go, who is this dude? And it's like he's getting shut down on Facebook as well because he's a troll.
So what I'm saying is write a whole paragraph of why we're assholes.
Right.
Don't just blurt out.
That would require critical thinking.
Exactly right.
Organized thought.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And actually putting pen to paper.
Exactly.
And making sense.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you can't do that.
But if you can, do it.
Please do. Right.
Yeah,
we love it. That's what I love.
Seriously. Yes.
Make an argument.
It's not a challenge. It's just go ahead and do it.
And that won't get deleted.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, even if I disagree with the 10 reasons why you think we're assholes, I won't delete that.
Right.
But if you just want to name call, you're gone.
Right.
I'm not doing. I don't do it to other people. I'm not going to do it. You're not going to do it to me. That's as simple as that.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of Alex Jones and prophecies, see that transition right there.
Nice.
In 1925, there was a book written called The Great Pacific War. So this is my World War II fact.
Okay.
It was written by a British guy named Hector Bywater.
When was it written?
When?
I think it was in 1925.
Holy
and
cow.
basically what he did is he predicted the entire Pacific campaign. It was this fictional story. He was a historian. It was this fictional story of how Japan was going to mount a surprise attack on the U.S. and then start working its way through the Pacific and take with an aggressive war. And it damn near was dead on accurate.
Wow.
Yeah, but he died on this day in 1940.
So he got to see.
He got to see it happen. Well, he didn't. No, 1940.
Yes, but
In
Japan
41.
But Japan had started hostilities with China in the 20s.
I guess you're right. So, but that probably in the 20s. He wrote the book in 25. So maybe that was part of why he did that.
Yeah.
But he saw history coming, and
that's amazing.
There's that was the best factoid of the day I could come up with.
Yeah.
With respect to.
Can you imagine you're a sci-fi writer or that kind of writing and what you put down on paper comes true? Wouldn't that freak you out? Like 1984.
So many guys have done this, though, and you wonder how they do it. You wonder how they do it. And, there was another one written. I've never read the book, but I think somebody wrote a book about a great ocean liner that sank. And, I think it was even called Titanic or something like that.
Wow.
And that was years before the Titanic hit the iceberg.
Yeah.
It's almost eerily the same.
Well, science fiction is particularly interesting. Like Jules Verne, about, what was it, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and then, going to the moon.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we've seen these things happen.
Yeah.
And they were fantastic visions that were like, oh, come on, we're not going to get to the moon.
Yeah, exactly.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And,
Or even the pieces of what they extrapolate from Star Trek. The flip thing that they have. It's like, well, that was a flip.
The flip
now,
phone.
whether the flip phone saw that going, that's a cool design, or one of the other, I don't know.
Life
but
imitate art or vice versa, right?
It still was implanted in us, and like, oh my gosh, lots of things came from.
And all the AI that was featured in Star Trek. Right?
Yeah, I'll come to that. And
computer. What is this?
Yeah.
Well,
now we don't need 2001: Space Odyssey though, where Hal comes in and just.
But
takes over everything. We don't need that crap.
Hal's voice will put you to sleep.
Bones doing that body scan thing.
Yeah,
we're doing that.
We're doing that
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Oh, you have an aneurysm.
The tricorder.
Yeah, and the tricorder thing, and all that, right?
Yeah. And I think there was, if I remember correctly, I may be dreaming this up though. I thought there was an episode about they kind of discussed what we do with cancer now. All that stuff, and they were kind of saying, that was a bad time.
Interesting.
That we did all that to our bodies to kill cancer.
Yeah.
sort of thing.
They
It's
would do
like,
the
wow.
time travel thing, like they went back to Chicago during Al Capone.
Al Capone time.
It was a pretty cool show, man.
Yeah, it was really. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And Shatner's still on the air. He's got some kind of new program on Fox now about aliens on Fox Nation.
Yeah, he's a piece of work.
He's a piece of work.
Yeah.
He's a big horse racing
And
guy.
he recently took a trip to space, so he says one of the most fulfilling things he's ever done.
Oh, wow.
Right? Did he take Elon Musk's trip to space?
Or
something?
the other guys, the Amazon
guys, one of them, he went up to space.
Yeah, I forgot that.
Yeah.
All right, so anyway, we have said nothing about nothing. So we are in the throes of the most bizarre electoral cycle, I think, that we will ever see, at least in our lifetimes. I mean, this is
before the change a month ago.
I know this is the craziest thing. Speaking of prophecies, we all predicted that it would not be Biden, and it is not. It'll be Harris, and I think it was Tulsi Gabbard who said, "Well, look, if Trump's the candidate, Harris will be president." I think she made some prediction like that way back,
and she still might be president.
And she still, I think she will be. I think Harris is getting elected.
I mean, like, she might be president even if she doesn't.
Oh, you're saying like here in the coming
I'm not
months.
sure Biden's got another 6 months.
Well, it's so fundamentally inconsistent to say that he's with it, he's on it, he's got all the faculties necessary to do this job when the world is basically crumbling around us on the brink of world war, literally. Yes. And he's on the beach sleeping last week.
Yeah.
And he's not fit to run, but he can still handle that stuff. So, look, I mean, at least be intellectually honest about this. Tell us one way or another.
Well, let's dive into that a little bit. So one of the big things that's going on right now in the world, of course, is the Ukraine-Russia war. And Lloyd Austin has sent over numerous nuclear-tipped assets, aircraft carriers, submarines. All this stuff is moving in and around the Black Sea, right? And it's new, and it's under the aegis of Hamas and Hezbollah attacking Israel and the Ukraine-Russia war, which are even though they're not in the same theater, they're adjacent. They're adjacent theaters. You could see a situation where those two conflicts somehow get spun into a world war. Where we're just generally fighting a two-front war.
And you can have Germany and Japan. I think it can happen pretty much any way you want.
That's right.
Yep.
I mean,
and
seriously,
and that's of course not even counting in the possibility of a third front between Taiwan and mainland China.
Yeah.
Right, Taiwan and mainland China.
True.
Well, it's only a third front if we get involved. I mean, that'll last about 10 seconds otherwise.
Yeah.
But and then you've got Iran. I mean, this world is on the brink.
It's teetering. So my point being about Lloyd Austin sending those assets is our press is letting us down. But thoughtful people are asking, did Biden order those assets? Or did the SecDef, basically, is he acting on his own? Because Biden,
who's calling the shots?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, who's calling the shots? Normally, when you send those kinds of assets, which are strategic, they're not just local, responses. Those are strategic assets that you would use to fight a fellow world power like China or Russia. Yep.
And we're sending those kinds of assets into a very narrow area of ocean and sea. And you got to be thinking, why isn't Biden talking to the American people, or Kamala talking to the American people about the administration amping up in these hot spots? And you've got Ukraine has now come to control through this invasion of Russia. Ukraine now controls 400 square miles in the Kursk Oblast, which is a state, they call it an oblast, in Russia. Mm-hmm. So Russia is in Ukraine. And as of a couple of weeks ago, Ukraine is now in Russia. And we are scheduled, the United States, to send F-15s now to Israel. And F-15s or F-16s from the Netherlands are already in Zelensky's hands in the Ukraine. So you're seeing in both cases U.S. assets being sent either by us or by our, deputizing the Netherlands, to do it, into both of these war zones. And furthermore, Zelensky wants authority from the U.S. and has been given it to use U.S. war materiel inside Russia. And it came out
aggressively, not defensively.
Aggressively. And it came out last week at a press conference at the Defense Department where the spokesperson would not rule out that those assets could be used on a strike on Moscow. On Moscow.
Look,
so
this is like
you say, no, we do not authorize.
It's a tinderbox. We are living in a tinderbox right now.
We're talking about the capital of
Russia. And there's
Russia.
Somebody flicking the lighter,
And our Defense Department won't say, no, we don't authorize or support strikes
and you're
on
right.
Moscow.
What you slipped
Holy
in there.
shit.
You slipped in there. I think the most significant. That's not the right way to put it. One of the biggest problems of our day, and that is shame on the media, because I'm not seeing this on the news.
Yeah.
No.
And where?
And granted, I don't watch a lot of news.
I don't either. I don't watch a lot of the mainstream legacy media. I don't trust it.
Try to zone in on what's going to feed me, not my point of view, but just give me the facts, dude.
It's hard to find.
It is.
Right.
But this should be all over.
Oh my
This
God.
should be all over.
Oh my God.
But it's not, because they want the power. Everybody's heard I don't know if everybody has, but the media sort of become Praetorian Guard for the Democratic Party in a lot of ways, and I think they're protecting Harris, and they want her to be president. So this isn't coming up, and if there's a presidential candidate or the president or the vice president or anybody that's involved in this, whether it's Trump, whether it's Vance, whether it's Harris, whether it's Biden, I think these are not only fair questions; these are almost mandatory questions.
They're mandatory.
What is your plan here?
Right.
Is the U.S. is sending this stuff over? We've got China doing this. We've got Iran doing this. We've got Ukraine doing this and Putin doing this.
Right.
And what is your plan? What's going on in the world? There was a time not that long ago in our distant memory, like 5-6 years ago maybe, where there would be a press conference where this would be discussed. The U.S. sent this blah, 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 blah over. It's like but it's not discussed. And why not?
And why not?
You would have to ask why not.
So
to protect the damn election. That's the only thing I can see.
So after 9/11, you guys will recall that the then in vogue doctrine of the United States was, if you help people who are attacking us, it is as if you are the co-conspirator. So if you're harboring Al-Qaeda, right, in Pakistan, we don't need your permission to go in and kill Osama bin Laden, because those
are our enemies and you're helping them.
And you're helping them.
Right.
So it's the Bush doctrine, and we adhered to that. And Obama kept that in play because he did go into Pakistan.
Yeah.
He didn't ask permission. We sent SEAL Team 6 in. They killed people inside Pakistan without us notifying them or getting their permission slip.
Right.
So so you just think about this. Al-Qaeda hit the Pentagon with an airplane, right? And then Bush's response is to the world, if you help them, we're going to, we're free to attack you. So Putin, he takes incoming rounds manufactured in the United States, let's say in Moscow, in his capital, just like our capital was attacked. And he may look at us and say, well, you are aiding and abetting,
this is an aggressive war. This is not just defending your borders now.
Holy
They're
shit,
attacking
Steve.
Moscow.
I could see this guy pushing buttons,
and that's irrespective of whether we think that Ukraine has the right to do that or doesn't have the right to do that.
Matter.
But are we helping? Are we an ally? Are we helping? Like, what's happened here?
Yeah, we're widening this war.
And most important, what's the plan?
What is the plan?
Why I'm missing steps here, but why is Ukraine in Russia?
Right. Well,
in regards to that.
I'm sure.
Is that the old
taste of their own medicine?
Is that what it, or was that?
I think it gives them
the war.
It gives them
right. Yeah.
It's going to give them.
But I didn't realize that war was going in that direction. I thought it was protect, get out of our land.
This is when you have weak rains. No, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Right. So he's not just protecting his borders now; he's attacking.
Yes.
And look, like I said, he may have some justification for. It's their justification, not ours.
Yeah. Right.
And if they do that, they do that. But it's like we have kept loose reins. Biden has done nothing to right hurt on any of this.
That's right.
And, you could also ask, well, what's his responsibility to right hurt? Because we're the freaking United States of America.
Yeah, we can call a meeting amongst powers, and it happens.
We're a superpower. We're the greatest superpower that's ever landed on Earth.
We're supplying billions and billions and billions to Zelensky every year. Another tranche just this past month. I think it was, $2 or $3 billion in additional money. And I don't know what we're up to in Ukraine, but Vance thinks it might be as much as $50 billion at this point. And it's just going to keep
And there's
going.
no end, right?
There's no end.
Because it's not even, we are not we're not doing anything to treat this to end it definitively.
That's right.
It's just keep it going, keep it going.
I think Zelensky thinks if he takes Russian territory, then at the negotiating table, if they do a ceasefire, then he can swap that territory and get back Crimea. I think that's his.
Okay.
That's his
sure.
thought.
And that may be a legitimate strategy from their perspective.
Sure.
But from the world perspective, we're on we're in dangerous ground here, man. This is a tinderbox.
Yeah,
and Kursk, I'll do your World War II link up here. Kursk is famously within the Soviet Russian psyche. You say something like Stalingrad or Kursk or Leningrad, you talk about these set-piece battles against the Nazis, and it brings out all that national pride, all that love of Mother Russia, right? Mm-hmm. They're in Kursk, where Hitler, right, did his last big, battle to try to defeat Stalin. And now Zelensky, who they accuse, even though he's Jewish, they accuse him of being pro-Nazi somehow, right?
Right.
Now he's back in their mindset. Oh, they're back in Kursk, the Nazis, right? This is not good stuff. If you want to create a catalyst to escalate, that's it. Right. It would
just hearing what you said there.
It would be like if the Ku Klux Klan went and had some kind of big shootout with the FBI at Gettysburg, right?
Yeah.
This is like a holy ground to the Russians, and Zelensky's in there, 400 square miles.
Yeah.
And they have, I guess, 180,000 refugees in the Kursk area have evacuated, and I can almost see Putin doing a tactical nuke. If he thinks basically everybody in that 400 square miles is just Ukrainian soldiers,
right? Well, look,
I could see him doing it.
And you can see how he can justify it. Maybe even there's two means of justification: justify it to the people and everybody else, to his own people, but justify it like legitimately in his head.
Yeah, rationalize it.
Yes, this is our sacred ground.
Exactly.
So if there's ever a time that this is necessary, it is now.
Exactly.
Our very existence is at threat.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And we're at risk.
He's running out of troops. I mean, just like Ukraine is. There's a young man's shortage for both sides. Tens of thousands of people.
Yeah. Look, it's crazy. And look, is Trump the hero that's going to come end it? Who knows? But it's certainly somebody has to have a plan and somebody has to have a thought. And most important, back to where we're going here, is that why isn't the media asking for this? And why are they protecting the Biden-Harris administration? And you know darn well they wouldn't be protecting the Trump administration if it were reversed. No. And I mean protecting because, look, asking questions and exposing this stuff or a lack of a plan is how you get to a plan. Like if there's no other motivation and you're the executive branch of government and the media is saying, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Then you got to have an answer.
Yeah.
And the media is great for our country when it operates independently.
And this gaslighting on the negotiation table between Israel and Hamas, where we are brokering it, right? So right now there are, quote, peace talks amidst this Israeli bombing that took place, that the house bomb where they killed the head of Hamas in Tehran, right? And then they killed just this past week the Hezbollah leader in Lebanon. So Israel is being very aggressive, right? And we're being gaslit right now. The U.S. State Department is telling us, well, we're in negotiations, we are brokering, peace negotiations between Israel and Hamas, except that if you read past the first paragraph in the New York Times, down in the lower part of the article, it says, but Hamas is not attending the peace conference. So the very people that the peace conference is supposed to be,
it's all
they're
nonsense.
not even there.
They're not doing anything.
They have refused to participate. So you got Netanyahu negotiating with the U.S., and we are representing the position of Hamas.
Hamas is negotiating nothing. And why would they? Because they feel like they've got America bent over the barrel.
Exactly.
They've got the Biden administration bent over the barrel, and they've had their support.
Exactly.
It's like, wherever you, this is insanity.
It's insanity.
It's insanity.
The only people that really matter in that negotiation would be like Iran, because they're funding all this.
Yes.
And
we're
funding the other side.
It's like, it's so
the wrong people are at that table. Apparently, yeah, exactly.
Well, you don't have the right.
It should be us and Iran. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, basically. Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
It's like trying to negotiate the end of the Korean War, and you're not going to involve, and we didn't. South Korea was not at the table. We went and negotiated directly with North Korea, right, to quote end the Korean conflict, even though there was no peace treaty. And we did that, and we did it in Vietnam too. We bypassed the South Vietnamese government, and Henry Kissinger went directly with Le Doc To of North Vietnam, and they won the Nobel Peace Prize together. But South Vietnam was not at the table.
Yeah,
I mean, we've done this. America's done this.
Yeah, somewhere along the way, it became okay to not to really fight wars, but just to participate and have this political agenda behind whatever we're doing. It's like, we're not really going to fight, or we're not really, nobody really. Yeah. And I don't know where that is. I don't know where.
You can have it looks like the line is you can have everything but our people. Yeah. But our armed forces.
Well, we got
because we're going to give you money, we're going to give you arms.
But we got 60,000 names on that Vietnam Wall.
Well, that's right.
Well, I guess I'm going back to the Ukraine-Russia thing. Yeah,
right.
I'm sorry.
But it's the same thing. So it's it's the same. Look, it's not the same thing because we didn't lose men there, but we're supporting without supporting, and we're
doing everything. That's the line you don't cross. Don't send men in the battle.
It's just this imaginary line. So
it's a proxy war.
Yeah, take a stand. Yay or nay?
Yeah.
Right? This wishy-washy nonsense is creating conflict.
Yeah. So you can control it versus someone else starting it first. Yeah. I mean, Russia retaliating, going, okay, you're all in, but your people, we're going to pull you all in.
The number two nuclear power in the world, right? And we won't say to Ukraine, and we won't say to Russia, no, we do not sanction in any way, shape, or form any military action against the city of Moscow, your capital city. Yeah. How could we not say that?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
And the answer may lie in your answer. Maybe we want it. Maybe we want it as long as somebody else does it. Yeah. I don't know if this is on your list, Norm, but I wanted to get
go
to get Steve's insight on, it's now made national news that, the Westerville officer who fatally shot that pregnant 21-year-old.
Oh, yeah.
That he's on charge. The cop is now on, 4 different charges?
Blendon Township.
Blendon Township. Yeah. Thank you.
In Westerville.
Yeah. He's on 4 charges, up on 4 different charges. I mean, I guess I saw that, and I see the video of that car pretty much running him over.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to, again, I don't necessarily agree that he shot and killed her. Maybe it was extreme.
Mm-hmm.
But she was going to run him over.
This is one of these horrible scenarios that happens when you have weak reins on society. And I'm trying to, that may not be the right analogy. I'm trying to use it to link it up to what we just talked about. But we have created a society that, particularly at that time, where you didn't have to follow police orders, and you didn't have to abide by the law. And I don't know all the facts to know if this woman was actually stealing from Kroger, but I think that she was.
The video I saw, she was putting at least the cameras had her putting bottles of liquor in her bag.
Yeah.
Now,
so
again, I didn't see
she's
the video.
Shoplifting.
She's shoplifting.
Well, let's put it to the salient way to describe this, or the important way to describe this, there was reason to believe that she was shoplifting, which means that the police can investigate.
Right, and I didn't.
She was part of a flash mob.
Yeah.
I didn't see any video of her walking out with it, but you saw her putting it in a bag.
So when we start turning back the clock on causes, at some point, I always do this. When you look in the mirror, you're always thinking, all right, something bad just happened. I can almost always turn back the clock to a point in time, a decision I made, something I did that I can say, all right, that's sort of on me. It's like, yeah, that person did that to me, but before that I did this, or I didn't do this, or I made a decision to blow this off, and then I didn't do this. It's like there's always a ripple effect. And turning back the clock here, it's like we created a system or society where it was cool to go steal from grocery stores.
Yeah.
And look at San Francisco, and it's happening here too. A buddy of mine was at the Kroger down here, right around the corner from us, and he comes out, and a police officer, a special duty, hired off-duty police officer in full uniform, not only checked his receipt like they do at Walmart or Sam's Club, like a quick little highlight, went through each item on the receipt.
Wow.
And my buddy's an attorney. He's like, what's going on? He goes, look, they're losing $1,000 a day.
Wow.
$1,000 a day.
Yeah.
In
Amazing.
Shoplifting. So they've hired us, and they're not allowed to do anything. So they've hired us to start cracking down on this. And so once you have that, what do you do? It gets out of control.
Right.
And then crap like this happens. Couple that with this notion that you need to defund the police, and the police are all horrible.
Right.
And granted, some police officers are bad, some are good, some are in the middle. Not everybody's perfect. We're all human and imperfect. But couple those two things together. So now you've got a police officer at Kroger saying, "Hey, stop." This woman is not stopping. Not only that, she's driving her car at him, and he's saying, "Stop or I'll shoot. Stop or I'll shoot." Yeah. And it's like it's created this. So you can't just judge this. I don't think. Yeah. Now legally it might be different, but societally we can't just judge this by the moment where he pulls the trigger and blame that on racism or something.
Right.
There is a lot more going on here. There's a lot more in this milkshake. And we need to figure out what those ingredients are. Turn back the clock and get to the root cause of this, which is far more complicated. But to the question at hand, which is why is he charged with 4 counts of murder? Well, there's different ways to be charged with murder. You can be charged with murder, aggravated murder, manslaughter, involuntary manslaughter, or voluntary manslaughter, negligent homicide, reckless homicide. And a lot of times what prosecutors will do, they'll just pick the array of them. Okay. And then if a jury doesn't agree with the most serious, maybe they'll agree with the next serious or next serious, next serious. And some of that is a strategic maneuver just to get their conviction. I know the lawyer on that case, Mark Collins, a great lawyer, a friend of mine, and a very well-respected attorney, does a lot of these kind of cases. And I'm going to try to have a conversation with him at the table here at some point here in the near future. But
that'd be great.
Generally speaking, this is another example of what happens when we lose the reins of an organized society.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't care what color you are, you can't steal.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
And you can't not follow orders going, just stop, get out of the car. Over 3 or 4 bottles of liquor.
Right. And thinking that she doesn't need to stop. Now, the justification is going to be we're so afraid of police that we don't want to stop. And if you legitimately believe that, we'll turn back the clock to a point where what causes that belief? Yeah. And is it accurate? Yeah. And then turn back the clock even more until you get to that.
I think this is the anniversary week, for example, of the Ferguson event where Michael Brown, was reaching into the police cabin where the officer was to get his gun. Yeah. And they're wrestling over his gun.
And there was no stop, don't do it. No. There was none of that. Don't shoot. But,
And that was a shoplifting. That's what triggered that incident.
And look,
was shoplifting.
There's a Marxist notion that property rights, there's no individual property rights, right? So everything is owned by the collective, and the government has to sort of dole it out before you get to the pure utopian nonsense that they think ever will come. Exactly. But property is personal property. It's real property. It's like, this is somebody else's property. And if you wonder why your grocery bill is high, this is part of it. Mm-hmm. Because if the grocery stores are losing $1,000 a day in shoplifting, guess what? They're going to make that up somewhere, and it's going to come out of your pocket because you pay for your groceries and you pay for your groceries, and hopefully you guys pay for your groceries. I pay for mine, and I buy less now because I can't afford it. But the point is that there's so much going on here.
That's
now,
right.
And this at the end, when this officer made a decision to pull the trigger, I don't know how it. I wasn't there. I don't know. I know what the argument's going to be. Is that he was acting in self-defense. It was a lawful police order. She not only was not obeying the order, she was aggressively not obeying the order and putting this guy's life in danger. Yeah. And, that's going to be Mark's argument in the case. there was a time and place where maybe it was too far the other way, where police could get away with rubber hoses and phone books and beating up suspects, and there was no safeguards on that. And then back in the 60s, we had cases like Miranda and Terry versus Ohio, and some other sort of watershed moments in our criminal procedure where we decided we're gonna put in place some constitutional protections to protect us from overreaching police. Well, it's like the pendulum always swings, and it always swings too far in the other direction.
Yeah.
And now it's gone all the way back. It's
all the way back.
Now these people think they can do everything, and they don't have to obey a lawful order of police. I was taught at the dinner table. I was taught by high school teachers. I was taught by peer pressure, by everybody who knew anything about common sense, that when a cop says stop, damn it, you stop. And if you don't stop and you run, it's because you're doing something wrong and you don't want to get caught. And, it's not that people told me to run, but I understood that implicitly. Yeah. And now people think they can just run away.
Yeah.
And there's no consequence.
So this will sound like I'm some kind of immediate, trying to politicize this, but there are two salient facts involved in the election they're absolutely part of this equation. And one was the former Attorney General of California supported that change, where if the total amount being stolen is under, was it $900 or whatever it was under $1,000, that we're not pursuing those cases. Which is
insanity.
Yeah. So Kamala Harris, that's her. This is her idea.
And look,
and then the other thing was she created a bail fund for BLM violent protesters.
Yeah, in Minnesota, ironically.
Hey, come on, man.
Yeah.
I mean, this factors into the thought process of young people of any color.
Of course.
That the police are the bad guys and you run from them.
And you see it. Look on YouTube. You see these young girls, suburban girls, city girls. It doesn't make any difference.
It doesn't
what color.
Make a difference.
And I say girls because it's almost always like you see these YouTube videos where this girl's like, she's wasted and I don't have to get out of the car. And I don't, it's like, yes, you do. Duh. You absolutely do.
You sort it out later in court.
I am no apologist for the police.
I know you're not.
I am not.
Exactly.
And I have cross-examined them. I have exposed their lies, their corruption, their cover-ups.
Right.
In many, many cases, I've caught them with their proverbial pants down.
Yeah.
Many times.
Yeah.
And I love doing it because I think it sanitizes our constitutional rights, or at least
But you're doing that in court. That's where it belongs.
I can help you in a courtroom. I can't help you on the side of the road if you're running down a police officer because you think you righteously don't have to obey.
And then you get shot and you're dead.
You get shot and you're dead, and it's the most tragic thing that can happen. That's somebody's daughter. That's somebody's mother. That's somebody who doesn't get to live anymore.
An unborn baby.
Yeah.
Unborn baby.
Yeah.
I mean, this is awful at every level. And the people you're talking about are responsible for it by spinning this nonsense message that it's okay to steal and we're not going to prosecute, that it's okay to violate the law and it's okay to run from the police and disobey orders. It's not.
It's not.
It's not. And it's not okay for police to falsely arrest people, to target people of a certain race or color, or to engage in any sort of corruption.
And we'll sue them if they do violate.
Those things are true at the exact same time.
Right, exactly.
But in the main, police are not all bad.
No.
This guy just wanted to stop somebody who was stealing.
So the whole reason we talked, it's been a long time, but when we had the FOP guy in here, Brian Steele of the Central Ohio Lodge, we talked a little bit about this case. The two Blendon Township policemen involved were in that Kroger lot responding to a lockout or a dead battery or something. They were assisting a shopper, and they happened to be in the parking lot. Yeah. This Kroger employee runs out in the parking lot and says, "It's them, and them. They just stole a bunch of stuff." And it was this flash mob of several people. They all got in separate cars, and they're all taking off. And the one car that they could stop was this young lady who was pregnant. She was maybe the slowest one to the car, or
nearest to them.
And they were able.
Just bad luck on her part that she was in the wrong place, wrong time, kind of thing. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I mean, the police were actually there trying to do good things.
And look, representing this is like the hallmark of criminal defense. And go back to Clarence Darrow wrote a book I think called For the Defense, and Clarence Darrow is sort of like a hero. Now I don't think I would have agreed with him anything politically. But anyway,
right.
But he was a master in the courtroom, and he took on causes that were unpopular either way.
The Scopes monkey trial,
Leopold and Loeb. He sort of cut his teeth in the Chicago labor disputes and some other stuff. I mean, really taking on all causes, the most downtrodden of people, right? And so as a criminal defense lawyer, whether it's unpopular or not, somebody's going to pick up the torch and defend this police officer, even in the face of political nonsense that all cops are bad. So, Mark's got his hands full. I think, he's got to overcome, Mark Collins, the lawyer, he's got to overcome some of that implicit bias and find a way to get a fair trial for his client. And hopefully his client, whatever the just result is, hopefully it is reached.
Yeah.
I have my personal thoughts on it, but, tragic as it may be, I think at the end of the day, the guy is probably going to be vindicated. I don't know for sure, but
I don't know why that video hit me the way it did. The other video from a few years ago, the young lady that you guys broke down here.
Oh, the knife fight.
Yeah, exactly.
Knife,
It's just that you look at the police officer, and if that car had hit him differently, he'd have been caught under that car.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd have been out of commission.
Yeah. It was a deadly weapon that was being used against him.
2,000 pounds of deadly.
If a police officer were driving his car at a suspect,
right,
it would be a deadly weapon.
Absolutely.
Right.
If the suspect is driving the car at the police officer, it would be a deadly weapon.
Exactly.
I've defended many a case where the angry boyfriend or girlfriend is trying to run down the other with a car, and it's flown into cells.
And I feel bad that the family has lost her. I really, really do.
This is a tragedy of the highest order.
But it's just she made some really bad choices.
I mean, we all feel bad that
she did not deserve to die.
No,
I feel bad that George Floyd died. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
But there is evidence. There's evidence that they trained Chauvin to do what he did.
Yeah.
I mean,
look, I
and
think
if that needs to be reformed, then we do.
I mean,
change the training. Look, did Chauvin make all the right decisions? Clearly not.
Clearly not.
Clearly not.
Right.
He blew it in a lot of ways.
Exactly.
But these tragedies are going to continue to happen if we are teaching our society that you don't have to respect authority.
And in the George Floyd case, they never proved any kind of hate or animus because there were diverse police involved in that apprehension of George Floyd. Yeah. There were Asian Americans, there were women, there were other kinds. It wasn't just white cops, black suspect. And there was no evidence that Chauvin did this because George Floyd was black, and yet it turned into it's another one of these racial.
Well, they made it racial, and it didn't have to be. I didn't hear one shred of evidence. Look, I've said this sort of maybe even famously now because I've said it on so many podcasts. Like I called up my colleague. Or my colleague called me, texted me at night when that was going on, like 6, 7 at night when all the footage was coming out the first night.
Mm-hmm.
He said, "Did you see this?" And I said, "Yeah, looks bad."
Looks bad.
And I said, "I wonder if it's race related."
Right.
And he goes, "Well, I don't need to know that." He goes, "Obvious." I said, "Well, I'm not so sure."
Jeez, man.
Like, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, exactly.
I said, "It might be.
It might be.
It might be.
It might not be."
I never saw the evidence of it. Now the other side's going to say, well, it's just systemically part of the system where
it's implicit.
This only happens because the guy's black, so you don't even know it's race related because you're swimming in the water of race, of racism. And
you say that, and it can go reverse too. So is it systemic that young black women are going to go out and it's in their DNA? They're going to go out and steal liquor?
Of course not. Right.
It goes both ways.
Somebody was taught to do that in some way, shape, or form. Right. So it's like, look.
Again, she's not at fault, but not faultless, I should say. But it's not.
Floyd,
it doesn't fly.
Floyd was high, and he was ODing, and he was having his own medical issues, and he was committing crimes. Right. Awful. No reason for him to die that day.
Right.
But it's still true.
Right. And I feel bad that he died. I feel bad that Michael Brown died in Ferguson.
It's awful. It's awful.
Right.
But I think we have to find the cause, not just the blame.
Yeah.
We have to get to the cause. Like, what is it? Like like you said, Brett, I think it's extremely racist for anybody to suggest that only young black women would go and be thieves. There's plenty of white thieves. I know them. I represent them all the time.
Sure.
And there's, but
well, I think we could stipulate there are more white thieves than there are black thieves in America.
It's probably true. It's probably true. It's probably true.
Yeah.
And there are plenty of white folks who get injured by cops, and there's plenty of black folks who get injured by cops, and there are plenty of cops that are bad, but most of them are pretty good. At least they try to do the right thing. Yeah. We have protections in place, people. We have protections in place. If this arrest is invalid, if this arrest is unconstitutional, if this cop were doing something that he shouldn't have been doing, then come to me or somebody like me tomorrow.
Right.
I can help you tomorrow. I can't help you there, and now you're dead, and it's awful.
Yeah. Right.
It's awful. I pray for you. I mean, literally, it's awful. Yep. So, look, we're probably unpopular for even having this conversation, but it's at least a common sense conversation.
Well, and I bring it up just because a local action is national news.
Yep.
I mean, it's being covered by everyone.
Yep.
Good or bad, it is.
You bet.
And it's just another.
And we're going to break it down when this case goes to trial. We're going to break it all down.
Because I think it's worthwhile. It's just how it got there and that sort of thing too. Yeah, I agree.
There was I don't think he's on the air anymore, but there was a one of those commentators had a show. Barry Farber. He was on WTVN for many years. Barry Farber, and he had this great philosophy, and I Steve has said in the past that this philosophy is in fact part of the defense. What the defense says when a homeowner or a policeman is defending themselves, and perhaps even goes a little further, like doesn't meet. It's not the exact amount of force to counteract the force that's being put on them, but the person went a little further, and the philosophy was illegal aggression, right, invites overreaction. Because in the heat of the moment, right, you catch a burglar in your house, in your daughter's bedroom, right, and you don't wait to see if the guy's armed. You just start shooting, right? Yeah. He's done a crime by breaking and entering. Mm-hmm. And Barry Farber's saying that aggression invites overreaction.
Well, it does, right? So I started to say this earlier, and we got sidetracked on something. I forget what I think. I think one of you guys said she didn't deserve to die, and you're absolutely categorically right. She did not deserve to die, but it can also be true that he acted in self-defense. So this is where this is a struggle we have in front of juries. Like, it's not that this person should die.
No,
it is whether this guy who's accused acted in self-defense within the confines of the law. And the concept that you're talking about gets sort of processed through the legal system and comes back as a jury instruction that goes something like this. The law does not measure nicely the degree of force necessary to repel the attack, right? Because we are human.
We're human.
You have to put yourselves in the defendant's shoes.
Yeah.
You have to think about the things that he was thinking about, consider the things that he was considering, looking at the things that he was looking at. Self-defense cases is the only opportunity where I get to say, ladies and gentlemen, put yourselves in the shoes of the accused. Think what he was thinking, see what he was seeing, hear what he was hearing, know what he knew about this.
What were his available options to immobilize that car?
And
he didn't have a button to push to turn the engine off and stop the car.
Right.
He's got a gun on him.
And it's not...
What else is he supposed to use?
He's not a robot. He's not a hero. This isn't TV.
This isn't AI.
So I try to get jurors in this mood where, like, I tell this story in front of juries sometimes where there was a time, like once or twice. One time I had to quote, sweep my house. I thought I had heard a noise there was no reasonable explanation I could come up with. None.
Yeah.
Not one. And it was dark. I used to have a house where there was a basement entrance from the outside, or at least through a garage into the outside. And I heard a noise in that area, and I thought there is no reasonable explanation for this whatsoever. I had just moved in, so there was boxes all over my basement. It was a remodeled house, and the basement hadn't been done yet, so there were very few, like the kind of hanging lights with the strings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I couldn't turn all the lights on. In other words, when I went down, only the one bulb at the bottom of the stairs. And here I am in my pajamas and no shirt and a firearm, sweeping my basement around like boxes and stuff in a fairly new house freshly we moved into a remodeled house. And I have never been more terrified in my life. Never.
Yeah.
And it dawned on me afterwards, like any action I made in that, as I was going through that experience, there's no way it would have been perfect. Not even close to perfect. I mean, it would have been.
Right.
And so the police are trained and they're professionals and they're supposed to be able to deal with it and they get better at it. But, we've talked about our guys here at the table, or our cops at the table about this. It's like, it is hard to do.
Yeah.
This guy, like you said, Brett, there's a car coming in. What's he to do? What is he perceiving?
Self-preservation
what is he
kicks in
feeling?
Yeah.
Think about his heart rate at that particular time.
Absolutely.
Think about what he's thinking about.
Yeah.
About his, and look, this doesn't mean that she deserved to die. She didn't, and she shouldn't have.
Yeah. Right.
But both things can be true here.
Over a bag of liquor.
He can act in self-defense,
Jesus.
and she doesn't deserve to die.
Yeah.
Right.
This is one of those tragedies that the system cannot fix at a trial.
Yeah, there's no perfect outcome here.
This has to be prevented in the future. And I would suggest that we can still hold police accountable and instruct people to obey them.
How to interact.
Right. We can do both.
We can do both. Right.
And we're creating a fertile crescent for this kind of crap to happen.
Yeah, we sure are.
With bad policy.
But sadly, in that court case, though, if let's say things need to be refined, it's all going to be shining on how cops are trained.
Yes.
It doesn't take care of the other end of it. Why did this young lady die?
Yeah.
How can we change that?
Why
that trial
did she
court
do
case
what
does
she
not.
did? It doesn't. Asking why she did what she did is not the same as saying she deserved to die for doing it.
That's right.
Right.
Nothing
maybe quite the
changes
opposite.
Nothing changes on that side of it.
Like
though.
what in her belief structure and how is her belief structure created? Like her belief system informed.
And we'll never have a perfect answer to that question because she's gone.
But that's a better. At least we're asking questions that might prevent this from happening again.
Right.
Because we don't want it to happen again.
On both sides.
Right.
His training and her situation walking in.
Right.
Yeah,
this is
maybe
horrible for all. Well, look, guys, we're into it.
Yeah.
Happy 100th episode.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
I think
Here's
food for thought, because I know that all of us here love economics and think we know something about it. We know a little bit about it. And I just want to put out there that in my estimation, the proposals from Sherrod Brown and Kamala Harris to freeze prices.
Oh my gosh, we could talk for 2 hours on this nonsense.
And also shrinkflation. So
the government's going to set the price of groceries,
and also going to do some kind of big warnings on a tube of Colgate or Crest that, hey, people, P&G or Palmolive is lying to you. This tube of toothpaste in a big box is actually only 4.3 ounces. Well, yeah, I can read that without a warning label.
I don't need the government to look. I
mean, it's just ridiculous.
This is lunacy.
It's lunacy.
The last time price fixing worked was never. Right. The last time communism and socialism worked was never.
Or even us. President Ford had whip inflation now. Everybody wore these little buttons, and he and Nixon, that before him, tried to freeze prices.
Didn't work.
And what you get is a shortage, because a hog farmer who is being told by his Kroger buyer, listen, I can't pay you more for pork than this amount. And he says, well, then I'm just going to slaughter my
I can't do it.
Reduce my livestock.
And then you have a shortage of bacon.
Right.
That's the outcome.
Or when think of this is my four corners of woodworking analogy. So you're going to tinker with the price in this corner and you're trying to build a perfect square picture frame.
Right.
So he's going to shave a little bit off there, but that throws off the other corner. And the other corner is like the supply line or what it takes to build that product. So now since I can't sell the product for the price I needed, I've got a stockpile of parts that I needed to make that product that I can't sell.
Yeah.
So then what?
Yeah.
Or
because
there's a shortage, this guy over here, well, he happens to be flush with cash right now because of some other tinkering. So he's going to go buy all of those parts because he knows in the future he's going to need them. Now you don't get them, so it just distorts the entire market. Thomas Sowell does a great breakdown of this
and then
in Basic Economics.
The other economic story, guys, that I know Trump did this as a throwaway campaign gimmick, but this idea that we're not going to tax tips, and I would just say, okay, if you're looking for people that we all sympathize with or people we love, like waiters, right? So we're not going to tax their tips. Okay, so let's not have an income tax on teachers or military or
lawyers.
first responders.
I'd prefer not to pay tax.
or lawyers.
I'd prefer not to pay tax on cash fees.
Yeah. Well, in fact,
right. I'd prefer that.
In fact, the Heritage or one of the
somebody thinks
tanks,
I make enough money without knowing how much I make.
Well, they said, well, accountants and lawyers, what they're going to do in response to this would be like, okay, I'm going to charge you $15 an hour, but I really want you to pay the other 85 to get to $100 an hour. We'll call that a tip.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're just going to couch it as a tip.
Well, that's because they're dishonest. No, it's because they're human, right?
Well,
it's because they're human, and it also demonstrates something that's very significant in a capitalistic society: greed and people's quest for a profit sort of guide them in a very moral way at times, right? So I'm not saying that's the only thing out there, but it's like, look, people are gonna act in their financial best interest.
Absolutely,
they are.
Yeah.
And if you're ripping people off, then you're going to be exposed, and you're not going to be able to rip people off anymore.
Yeah. When I get
I'm going to go buy from you instead of you.
I get your invoice from Palmer Defense, and you go, suggested tip, Norm, is $150 per hour. Right. I'm only going to charge you really $25, but I expect you, if we're going to continue in this relationship.
Or if you want this deal, I'm going to give you a discount, but we got to call half of it a tip.
Yeah. Right. I mean, you know that's going to happen.
It's coming. It's coming. It's coming. All right. Common Sense Ohio. You can check us out at commonsenseohioshow.com. If you want to be a supporter, you can be. All you have to do is go to commonsenseohioshow.com. Send us a message that says, hey, look, guys, I love what you're doing. I'd love to give you $5 a month, or I'd love to sponsor your World War II fact of the day, or I'd love to sponsor Norm's Nuggets at the end, even though we sort of don't call them that anymore. I would love to
sponsor a day where Brett just doesn't say anything,
or maybe sponsor Brett's silence.
Yeah,
right.
I will say, Norm,
you pay us enough money, we'll shut Norm up.
Norm is super defensive about his Nuggets. I just want to say,
he got the last 2 in today.
I protect my Nuggets.
Right.
Man.
So, if you want to be a sponsor, go to commonsenseohioshow.com. Otherwise, tune in each week, in and out of each week, whatever I'm trying to say, you get it. But here we are, August 16, 2024, coming at you right from the middle, commonsenseohioshow.com.